You guys want to introduce? All right.
Okay.
You guys
So
want to introduce
hey
yourself?
everyone. Um, we here at FutureLine are excited to interview our guest, Dr. Xiangpeng Zhao. I'm Joe, and myself and Xisun will be your host today. So we are a student-run organization dedicated to fostering dialogue and education surrounding artificial intelligence, its far-reaching implications, and the critical concept of AI alignment. Dr. Xiangpeng Zhao is a seasoned software engineer working on AI infrastructure at Meta, with a current focus on AI system performance and reliability. Since joining the company in 2012, he has contributed to building big data processing platforms, automating software bug detection, and improving mobile app performance. He holds a PhD in informatics from Peking University. So let us begin.
All right, so first question here, how exactly is AI involved in your work?
So currently, I'm working on AI infrastructure, so it's all my work. But if you're asking, hey, how AI is being used to help people work in the company, I would say it's like think about ChatGPT. We have our equivalent system in Meta. So everyone is feeling free to use AI. I cannot tell how many people are actually using AI every day, but at least personally, I've been using it pretty often.
Also, then what initially drew you to this field of AI?
I would say first, it's a personal interest. I've been monitoring this area for quite a while, and I would say at this moment, there's a kind of FOMO effect as well. So everyone's like, oh, AI is so important, you cannot just not ignore that. So in any sense, I would say currently everyone almost in the industry or in the world understand how important AI is. So there's never a question when I ask someone, hey, do you want to work on AI? Everyone will say, yeah, of course.
So then
Wait,
related,
so,
uh,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said then related to this, then how do you imagine AI developing, I guess, for the next 10 years, like the future?
We cannot foresee that very far at this moment. I would say, at this moment, right, when we look at ChatGPT and other kind of LLMs, there's a lot of hallucination. There's very limited, I mean, there's decent use of it, but there's still limitations. So right now, it's more like we're mostly planning from an industry's perspective based on what the current AI is capable of. So that means we're mostly trying to figure out how AI can assist us in our work and on how we can build AI-assisted products. So think about Copilot, for example. Uh, or in another way, it's like, think about how AI helps recommendation systems. So that doesn't really need LM say it's an AI-based system. It has been there for years, and we can keep improving that. So of course, we may talk about AGI later in this discussion. If we have real advancements in the AI research and that will bring us a much smarter AI, well, of course, everything will change, but that's something we are not foreseeing with the current pace. So it's like it's a possibility. It's not something we're planning for.
Wait, so I just wanted to go back to the question about like what initially drew you to the field of AI. So you were talking about how you like saw AI as kind of a good opportunity and as kind of an interest back like way back in the day. So what exactly was like the environment surrounding AI like back in the time when you first got interested and you first delved into the field?
Yeah, the first time I worked on this thing was still called pattern recognition. So it's a very mathematical base, but from there we're talking about, I think at that time I learned these things, SVM, some machine learning models and k-means are like, on the textbook. Um, at least at that time we can talk about, oh, how can you tell how do you know, let's say face recognition? Or before that, it's like, first, how do you recognize there's a line in the chart where the edge in the picture? So these are the things I started. I see it's very interesting. It's very mathematical, but at that time I wasn't able to predict, hey, it's now becoming more like a human brain. at that time it's more like, a bit of statistical and mathematical, and we can figure out how to apply these limited mathematical models to like whatever applications where we can do.
Yeah. So then related to this, would you agree that I think AI development nowadays, it's been getting, I guess, easier and easier, and I guess transferring from less of an elite group to more of like everyone can kind of use and develop AI tools kind of thing?
In terms of developing AI, yes, it becomes now if you can write English, you can create a prompt. So in that sense, everyone can develop on top of AI. And in terms of applications, it's there all the time. So
Do you think like the field in general of AI is as statistical and mathematically rigorous as before?
I mean, obvious, no. So the major changes like with LLMs, so everything is neural network based. Again, neural network is something I learned in schools again like 20 years back, but this is becoming the standard now. And with deep learning and the current RHLF from OpenAI, this is the way to go. Of course, this is we see still a lot of limitations. So one possibility is like how we can combine the traditional, more statistical models with the advanced neural network-based models so that we can, balance the cost and also the, problems associated with neural networks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I have a question that is more closely related with Meta/Facebook. So then, as imagined video generators, they become, more and more advanced. Um, so how do you expect, I guess, how do you expect this to potentially be a problem on social media? And does Meta have, I guess, any plans to address this problem?
So in a way, fake data exists before the current wave of AI, right? It's just the current wave of AI probably makes more easier to create. From that perspective, I'm not a official speak person for Meta, so I can say in general, from what I see in social media, right? People are trying to, create bot to detect what is fake data. And in a way, we can also leverage social power to identify what is right and wrong. So what we see that, from what I see in Reddit and Twitter or X, it's like people post a content that is kind of, you do not know whether it's real or not, but about then comments, hey, I found this from another source proving that this is actually not the case or explaining something. That's how we can again leverage technology to figure out what's true and what is false. Of course, we cannot really depend on 100% success rate when we talk about what is true and what is false. Or, there was a interesting discussion earlier, like, hey, should we allow political ads on social media? Well, then it becomes a question, what is political ads? So there's not always a possible to differentiate everything based on technology, but let's think about spam emails, right? Technology can always help us to fight things to control the damage of bad content to a certain level. It doesn't promise you a full solution, but we can still leverage these technologies. Like there will always be some bad guys trying to send scams to everyone, and we can always try to figure out how to prevent them. It's more of a social thing, and then it's like technology. Let's use them to help us.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Maybe we can use AI to kind of solve this problem that AI has created. So,
Right. Again, it's not guaranteed to be 100%, but think about it. Don't just think, oh, it's an AI problem, so let's use AI to solve it as well. It's more like it's a social problem. Let's use all the ways to figure out how to control that.
Yeah, I think what you said is pretty true because like a lot of the misinformation stuff, this happened before a lot of generative AI got to the capabilities that we have today. But do you think that if like more advanced models of AI was released, would this make the problem worse, or would this make this better, or would the problem still be basically the same?
I would expect the problem be basically the same. Because let's say if something you create is totally fake that you can tell is human intelligence, you know it's fake. It's more like, of course, there's a borderline case where some people may be influenced, let's say, if you put some content in this way. But that's something is already happening today, right? You do not need to use AI. Everyone who really want to influence you, or even sometimes you try to influence, you self-select yourself to the things you care about. Because that social process is already happening. AI, of course, like any information technology, is making things easier. It's like, previously you want to create a video, send it to everyone, it's impossible. Now you can just do it on any social media. So in that sense, information communication is becoming easier. Information creation is also becoming easier. But it's still like, I would say the focus should be like try to educate humans so we can differentiate. We have more critical thinking skills to figure out, like, do you want to hear anyone's voice? Well, there are all the voice in the world. You have to figure out who to listen to.
Mm.
That's a good point. And kind of pivoting away from this a bit, but how do you keep up with the just rapidly changing environment of AI? Because I know sometimes there's quite a lot of things, a lot of new developments every day. So I'm just interested to hear how you keep up.
So I'm relying on Twitter and also some Chinese social apps a lot. So in a way, again, think about social media. If something is important, it will become a discussion topic on social media. So follow all the important people on X or elsewhere so that you can get some, up-to-date info. And I would say some people are like also read papers, uh, even do some experiments yourself is important. Like if you're in the domain, just do things, go deeper, and then you have more understanding, and then you're more able to figure out what is important information to read.
Uh,
What do you think are some of the people that everybody should follow if you're interested in AI development?
I don't want to pick names because if I pick some, I didn't pick some, it's not
Mhm.
great. But I would say, I would recommend search by keyword, right? If you care about AI, if you care about certain keywords. So let's say you go to Reddit, right? It's already a keyword-based system, or just go
Yeah.
to any social media search. So that's how I started actually, when I realized,
Mm.
okay, ChatGPT is important, you can, of course, go to OpenAI's website, you found, oh, there's some in general discussion about how it works, and you learn the keyword RHLF, and then you go to
Mhm.
our system to search for that. Again, my only suggestion is like search on the social media so you can find the important people to follow.
Mm. Yeah, that's really good advice, honestly, for everyone that might be watching this and for ourselves as well. So thank you for that.
yeah. I think back to the topic you mentioned a bit earlier, but so what are your opinions on AGI? Do you think it's like realistic? Is like the Terminator, I guess, like is that possible, or do you think we're still a long ways off from that?
Yeah. So I would say it's like, do we know if fusion is possible? I would say, of course, it's possible, but when we will have that, it's unknown. It's like look at any scientific important progress, breakthrough, right? You cannot predict things on the area of research. So that's where we are today. Like we can only guess how long time or will we ever get to AGI or fusion. Like, if we use fusion as an older example, it was said that, okay, we're gonna have fusion in 30 years, 50 years, but it's still 30 years, 50 years every time you talk about that. So, I mean, for AGI, I think it's more realistic with what we've seen so far, but you never know when it's stuck. So if, let's say if you look at Ian LeQuin's comments, like, can a machine really understand human if you're just getting text input, for example? I cannot foresee how much that would happen. I'm a more of an optimistic person, so I hope it will happen in 10 years, so that I do not have to work as much as as we do right now. Of course, if that really happens, it's a huge challenge to the society that you never know. Like one idea was like maybe that's the end of middle class. So you only have maybe a few super rich people, and then everyone else does not need to work. So you just wait for, government send you a paycheck every month, this kind of thing. But that's probably beyond the technical discussion. It's more like, it's just a philosophical and that everyone could think, it's like sci-fi novels. So read them, there's already a lot of discussion in the space if you read these.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like thinking about the societal impacts now is better than trying to figure it out when AGI actually comes. So I think there is quite a lot of value in discussing this beforehand. And I was just wondering, since like it's kind of hard to tell what are the future technology trends and when exactly AGI will come out. What is your 90% confidence interval of which years AGI will come out?
So my guess is if it's 50%, I would say 10 years. If it's 90%, I tend to say 30 years, because anything that is a major advancements, like it's hard to predict. So you have to
Mhm.
say maybe when we're alive, we can see AGI is changing the world. That's a hope. But even that is kind of a hope. It's like, let's
I
say
mean,
we got
mhm,
electricity. When will we have computers, right? You never know.
yeah. I mean, to be fair though, 30 years, a 90% confidence interval for 30 years is still pretty impressive for this technology to be going at such a rapid speed of development.
I would say, yeah, because again, we've seen significant progress over the time, right? So,
Mhm.
or what makes me feel confident, like believe that by mimicking neurons is the right way to achieve AGI. So I think we are on the right path. It's just now the problem is like, how do you send the right material to this system? Like, it seems that if you just send text, it doesn't know how to do even arithmetic metrics correctly. And let's say, okay, let's train it how to learn math. And if even it learns math, it probably still does not really understand, how do you how can we send a lot of videos, which is like when a human grows up, we have a lot of video input. And in the world today, while we have Sora, it's like you have to send a lot of videos, and it's very inefficient to teach that. And when you are learning as a child, how many videos have you, I mean, what are your day-to-day input, right? You
Yeah.
go to school, you talk to people, everything here, we do not convert these things into the videos on the internet. We only convert something fun or something newsworthy. And that's a very biased input to the system. So again, how many videos do you have to create for a human to learn what a human needs to know? And you have, with the current efficiency of the AI system, you have to create thousands or millions times of similar content. And can we do that? I personally believe that's kind of the limit we have today, but it's 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 a solvable limit in my opinion. It's like it's not like, oh, we do not even know how to do neurons. Let's just create yet another math model, which can only do a very simple and restricted problem, but it cannot be a generic one. So at least we see it could be solving generic problems. So that's very hopeful.
Yeah, I suppose that just the sheer data that would be needed to create this AGI might be like out of what we have like right now. And also, is like the creation of AGI, is that like a I guess, priority for Meta, or is it more just like kind of philosophical discussions in the hallways kind of thing?
So in industry, I would say most people in the industry are more like practical people. We look at what was achievable today and try not to think what happens in 30 years. It's more like what happens in 3 years and 5 years. So of course the leadership will think, okay, what does it mean for the humans, right? So, but I think in general in Meta, our belief is like AI is a good thing, technology is a good thing for humans. So we would rather embrace that and figure out how to use that rather than say, oh, this is a scary moment. Let's stop investing. I don't think that's the way we would do things.
Yeah, I have a bit more of a technical question, or not necessarily that technical, but related to all of this. So, because nowadays all the AI models we see are statistical based, right? Like from like ChatGPT, let's say, or like a lot of these, they're all like statistical based. So do you think logic-based AI, which I guess that was like maybe 50 years ago when that was popular, do you think that has the potential to be useful in the future, or is it just not powerful enough compared with statistical models?
So, actually, I wouldn't call the current ChatGPT system as statistical based. I would rather call it neural network based. So to me, of course, you could say neural networks has some statistical background, but essentially it's done in a very different way so that you are not just, I mean, you could say, look at the output. Oh, it's about probability. So there's some conversion to probability models at the later stages. But the core is like, how do you construct the middle layers? It's mostly just, hey, connect these things together. And that to me is less statistical than the typical statistical model. So in that sense, it's to me it's a new system, and also I believe that's the only way to do things. Like the very old logic systems, it's kind of still helpful. So because if you look at the neural systems today, we know that it doesn't do reasoning pretty well. And back to 10 years back, even with the other simpler deep learning models, people are talking about, hey, it doesn't do reasoning very well. What can do? Can we leverage the reasoning system humans have developed for years, like symbolic reasoning, math-based reasoning? And it helped a little bit. People at that time was more thinking like, maybe we need two systems to run in parallel and combine the results. It's to me that compares to, if you want to do a auto driving car, you could say, I need some radar-based info. I also need some, the camera-based system. Do you need both? I believe it's like, let's try to follow what humans doing. You use eyes, you do not have a radar in your head. You can still drive. So in that sense, I tend to believe that just logic systems or logic inference powers should be derived from a good base model, which should be a neuron-based model. The question is like, how can you teach this neural system to realize or how to do logic and reasoning? That's if you are following this area, there's a so-called Q-star algorithm. I mean, this is still like a lot of guessing around it from OpenAI. But my understanding, if we look at how ChatGPT was trained or OpenAI was trained GPT systems, it's like you're mostly mimicking a human teacher process. It's a teacher and student process. So the teacher asks the question and the student answers the question. And the teacher evaluates, hey, is it a good answer or bad answer? And then also if you iterate long enough, it becomes intelligent. So then let's say if logic-based reasoning is not great for AI, the idea was like, okay, let's ask a lot of logical questions. Let's construct a lot of mathematical proofs and say, here's a challenge. Can you solve it? And if you have enough training, maybe the system will learn how to do logical reasoning. And even with the system today on ChatGPT, we can see that it can do some reasoning. It's just it hallucinates, it's not already correct. So, I mean, how can we solve that? Is it because it's lack of training or not? No one can tell for sure. It's more like because all these AI systems, it takes months, it takes like 10,000 of graphical cards, a lot of money to try one idea, right? So it's more like with this current speed of trying, and it's also think about the acceleration because hardware is becoming better every year. We can do this experiment faster. Right now, if you ask me where to bet, I would say bet on the base model and try to train it. And the logic systems, it's a good way to think like, how can we get the current system to be able to do this work? But just combining things side by side, I don't think is the right way.
Yeah, I think the
So,
ideal the ideal logic-based AI would be if you could give it a set of axioms and it can like derive everything from that. However, I think that might get way too complicated way too quickly. So yeah, I think Cixuan, you had a question?
yeah, I had a question. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, the axiom is more like a test. It's like a Turing test to me. Like give the system a few X. See, the training I was discussing is like, you cannot just say, hey, here's some axioms, go create something and have a human to verify what's the result. It's more like a reasoning system has axioms and the inference rules. So you compile them, you just apply them, pick a random initial problem, initial facts, and add some reasoning, you get some new facts. And that is how you construct a new example. And then you just take the input and the output, say, okay, system, can you figure out how to reason to the output, to the solution? That's how you can construct a training process. Okay, please go, Qiquan.
Yeah. So going back to like what you were talking about, some of the frontier models, kind of like having the architecture similar to a human brain and like being trained like human learning. How close do you think that current models, such as like ChatGPT, or Llama 3, I think, simulate the human brain?
So, there are two layers we can discuss. One that the core system, if you look at how neural network is created, right? It's just a lot of, we say, nodes connected through some linear models. And we just say, okay, input is 3, output, I don't know, we expect to be 5. So we say, okay, what's the factor? Maybe, let's say that this system will guess, how about we multiply 3 by 2? Okay, 6 feels closer. In that sense, neural system is also behaving the same, like there's a stimulation in the end, so we're gonna change. I learned that this is a strong connection between these two neurons, and maybe there's a weaker connection between the other two neurons. So in that sense, we're mimicking this neuron connections at the very lowest level. On the upper level, like after you have the basic neurons, you almost now we can talk about the intelligence of insects. Like it's more like years back before we have a lot of deep learning. We could say, oh, it can kind of differentiate two pictures, right? So that's already a bit of intelligence. It's more like I'd say in insects and mammals, maybe level of intelligence. But to get to the human level of intelligence, what really makes it work is like predict next word of a sentence, right? So that again, to me, is like similar to how human learns to speak and how to write. So we basically hear some word from the parents or the input from the outside world, and we try to mimic some word. We say mama, daddy, or whatever random words. So that's actually also simulating how you learn stuff. And just from the fact that how do you predict what's the next word in a sentence, we come up with a system that can generate somehow meaningful text. This is like probably 10 years back, we say AI can write poems. It's because we cannot control it pretty well. So it's writing some random stuff. We say, okay, it's a poem because it's so random. But at least it is not garbage, right? It has something, it have a bit of connection, correlation between the words. But then it's like now with the GPT system, we say, okay, first, the neural system is more advanced. So we try to add more structures. It's not just a fake neuron connected together. We try to connect in a smarter way. And then we also say, ask a whole question, answer a whole question, provide a whole answer and say, is this a good answer or bad answer? So all these levels of training is like starting from the insect level of intelligence to mammals to babies, and then now to a human. I mean, not a full human, but it feels close.
Mm. Yeah, so like tying basically everything together, right now, like some of the models, and you think future models would also kind of simulate a human. And so in terms of like algorithm and infrastructure, do you think that we've basically figured out like the optimal, um, just basically the optimal algorithm or infrastructure?
Totally no. So let's say I would compare, after we create the first gas engine, you know, generation of people keep to optimize that engine so it's more fuel efficient. So we are in a similar state. We figure that neuron, the design, the right design, but there are a ton of things to improve on, right? Over the year, we see
Yeah.
we have CNN, RNN, whatever, and like are improving. And also, if you look at the efficiency of how we feed data into this, a lot of work are spent on, how can you compress the data more efficiently, and when you run the training system, how you run it more efficiently through like not a single GPU, but multiple GPUs interconnected. So all these things, again, if you like the first person build a car, the first person build a plane, we are in this moment, like we have improved the plane to be somehow like a safer, faster, but there's still a lot of things to do. So
Mhm.
let's look at the human history, right? It's a breakthrough moment to invent the car and plane, and it also takes like a long time to make it as good as we are today. And we are still thinking like, can the planes fly more efficiently, or can the cars be more smart to auto drive?
Kind of related. So do you think that do you think we will need, I guess, more computing power to achieve a lot of these goals? Like are we kind of like with AI, are we kind of like at the limit of computing power and then like we kind of need more somehow?
So we're definitely seeing the constraint of compute power. It's like I was talking about, you need 10,000 cards that very few organization could afford. And even if you have 10,000 cards, you try one experiment, train a new model, it takes a month. Of course, with the advancement of hardware, the cost is becoming cheaper. Like, let's say if you have to train a simple system, let's say to the status of GPT-2, then you only need a single graphics card. At home, you can do it. So in that sense, the improvement of the hardware has made it possible for more people to join this research area. But it's still very limiting, even for the smartest people. It's like that's the reason I work on performance reliability. It's like if that system crashes after, let's say, 30 days of run, okay, what does it mean? Do you have to restart a 30 day of work? So there's a lot of this kind of associated work trying to make things just slightly more efficient. But still, again, I'm saying once you have a car, you are already moving faster than a horse. It's like, but everyone wants a car. Everyone wants a faster car. How can we build more of that? It takes time. So, but fortunately, we can see that it's an early stage of this system, so we can see Moore's law still holds. Like uh, we are still seeing faster and faster GPUs every year,
Mm.
so it's a good thing.
Yeah, so do you think like the limiting factor to achieving AGI would be the compute side, or would it be more of the data side or the algorithm side?
Yeah. My guess would be we need all of these. So unfortunately, you know, again, we think about human, right? Think about human, how many input you're getting through the years of growth. So that's a lot of data to process. So that means we need a lot of data to generate. And also that means a lot of data to process with the current system. It's like, you cannot just train a system with just a few examples. You need to have a huge amount of examples. So that's a huge challenge to the algorithm because we know humans do not need that many inputs to learn things. So obviously, all three areas needs like there are a lot of potential research to improve on each of the three areas. But Like, do we need all three? We don't know. Maybe we just need to solve one problem so well that, okay, maybe the third and the second problem are less important. That's what we learned from historical, right? Like, it still requires a ton of data to train, but hey, we have billions of pictures in the world that we can use to train the AI. Or we can just say, okay, do play chess for 1 million years of time. That just there are ways to work around.
Yeah,
All
no,
right, I think that sums up the topic pretty well. Jojo, do you have another question?
no, you can continue.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to move on to another topic because I think that you've done a good job explaining the topic of like algorithms and compute and also data as well. So my next question is, what are your thoughts on Meta open sourcing the Llama 3 weights?
Mhm. So, open source is a powerful thing that Meta has been doing for years, not only for Llama, but for many things. Or let's say in the industry, first I can explain why our industry doing a lot of open sourcing. It's more like for two reasons. One, that we do not make money based on that thing. We have something else to make money on to create the revenue. So, and we say, okay, here's a system that I depend on, but I do not really want to make money on. So how can I make it better? Let's open source that so everyone in the world can help us. So one example is the data center design in Meta. So of course, we have to build data centers to run all these compute, but we do not really sell data centers. We're like, let's open source all the data center design. It helps Meta in two ways. One, that everyone can help improve the design itself. And secondly, all the providers in the world, like they build these components, parts using in the data center. So everyone's building the same type of data center. That means there's a scale effect. So everyone can help um, providing the data, providing the material so that the cost of the data and the material will be cheaper. So in the similar sense, like, we open source stuff so that everyone in the world can help us. And if we are open AI, we cannot because that's the main thing we are trying to make a profit on. But here, a lot of companies are trying to, just figure out some important infrastructure and open source them. In a way, it's like, in the industry, all the infrastructure things, they're harder to keep secret as a secret because you have humans, you have engineers who learn these things, right? You can try hard to say, hey, don't go, don't spread the secret, but it's possible. So all these things are already learned by humans. So that's another reason why, when a company try to thrive, it try to build a proper business model. It's not trying to say, oh, I have some super smart engineers that will keep them and their secrets with me. So that's really not the way to go in the IT industry, at least.
Yes, yeah,
I see.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that's a great point. And so kind of related to this, in the future, in what role do you think, what do you think would be balancing, I guess, industry compared with like academia and government, or even just grassroots, just like random developers? Um, like for the future of AI, how do you think these people are going to drive it?
So for different type of people, everyone is aware that AI is a huge thing. So everyone's thinking how to work with it, collaborate with it, or, just making sure it doesn't cause issues. So I think the responsibility for the government is figure out, how to figure out the right regulatory so that we can use AI safely. Different companies probably have different ways to control things. Like, do you just like look at privacy? That's an example of how the government could help actually, because it's actually hard for a company to figure out what's the right thing to do, right? It's more like the lawyers and the government work together to figure out, okay, this is how you should do privacy. And then the company can operate within the boundaries set properly by these laws. And for grassroots and for uh, people who are not in the government or in the universities, it's more like I would say we have to embrace AI has such huge potential. It's like think about the previous wave of information technology. If you don't know how to use computer today, you're like, okay, what can you do? So it's better to learn how to leverage AI. But when I heard that, I have friends who are, visit me yesterday, who's a sophomore in a university, in a college. She's like, I cannot imagine how people learn things without ChatGPT, because we anything that I do not understand, I can ask ChatGPT, explain this paragraph, explain this mathematical proof to me, explain this paragraph of the paper, or even just the whole paper to me. So in that sense, everyone should try to at least use ChatGPT. Also, if you can figure out new ways of leveraging that, because again, we now have a chat system that is smart enough to do things. The challenge is like, how can you apply this new system to an existing area? It's like, again, think about the computers, how computers changed every industry, every part of our life. And then how can we leverage the AI to change our day-to-day work or whatever things you're working on? And maybe you find a good idea and you can create a startup out of that. So that is an opportunity for anyone. And previously you have to write code, and now you don't even need to know how to write code. You just write English so they can figure out, okay, this is a problem that the ChatGPT can solve pretty well. And then you probably have a way to create a startup.
Yeah, I think it's a great
So in
point.
terms of, oh, sorry.
Um,
Yeah, go ahead, Jojo.
ChatGPT has really made AI go mainstream where everyone knows about it. And everyone like is using it. So I think, and back to Zisun.
Yeah, so on the topic of like opportunities and accessibility for everyone, if Meta does create AGI, will the model weights be open sourced?
So again, this is a question is hard to answer because I'm not the decision maker here, and we're also far from AGI. But I would say, if again, we do not have to talk about Meta, we can talk about what will the industry be doing. My prediction is that it will be open sourced. So I can imagine like when the first company has a breakthrough, oh, I got an AGI that could do wonderful things. Of course, it probably will be kept a secret because it's like atom bomb. You don't want anyone to know how to build a bomb at home. But as you can see, the secret is it's probably gonna spread eventually. And if it's a software problem, it's even easier to spread that. So my take is that eventually everyone will be able to have access to like, or alternatively you can say, is there any algorithms with human development over the years are still kept as a secret? I haven't seen any of that. So, or any mathematical solutions. Maybe there are some. I don't know. I cannot claim I know every industry and every system,
Mhm.
but at least for the world of software, I haven't seen such a case where a secret can be kept forever.
Because I guess software is especially easy to share, right?
Yeah.
Um, compared with like other, I guess, hardware and stuff. Those might be easier to keep secret.
And even for the people working on this area, like we also have some even mortal obligation to think about. If you are able to give AGI as a great gift to the world, would you hold it by yourself or just give it to the world? So, or if because again, because the openness of software, there's also a gaming part of it. It's like if I'm not going to share it to the world, someone else will. So how about I be the first person to do that? So that's why, in the world of software, we are more open and are more willing to share.
And then some kind of related to this whole talk about AGI, do you think that development in AI will accelerate in the future, or like is it going to be kind of, I guess, like an exponential curve, kind of like we have um another thing when we have 2 times as many gates on a chip as we had before? So do you think like AI development is going to continue accelerating?
So in terms of hardware and, like there are two ways to talk about accelerating. It's like because we are putting more resource like more human to this and also more hardwares, things will be becoming more efficient. It's more like, again, when computer is introduced, it will just gradually it will be more accessible to everyone. In that sense, it's accelerating. But in terms of the fundamental change, like, can you redesign computer? Like after we have computer, when we'll have the internet, it's like it's hard to tell. So we're back to that discussion earlier. It's like if you look at the incremental improvements, it's becoming like cars will becoming better and better, planes will become better and better. But when we have cars, we cannot predict when we have planes or when we have rockets.
Yeah, that's I think that's definitely that's very true. Because yeah, we definitely do see more and more resources being poured into AI every year. But like you said, it's hard to predict the future.
But if you're trying to suggest, yeah, is this becoming, you can ask me this way. Is the stock price overvalued today? It, especially for the startups, the valuations are already very high. So are we getting the right return of investment, considering the amount of money and people joining this effort? So my take that currently it's break even. So if you look at the some of the financial reports, you know, in the recent quarter, Meta says, "Oh, we're going to spend a lot of money on AI," and then after that thing was out in the fiscal report, then the stock market responds like, "Oh, it's probably spending too much," so the stock price went down. But if you ask me, like, I still believe that's the right amount of money spent because I can see, let's say we look at Microsoft's fiscal report. It basically tells us Copilot and that stuff are adding the revenue by 10% of such a huge company. So let's say for a company of that size, if you can increase revenue by 10%, it at least makes sense to spend 5% of the current revenue as investment. And that's a lot of money. And right now, if you look at the scale of investment, it's kind of within that boundary. We're not like, hey, let's spend every bit of money to work on AI. It's more like it's a reasonable spend. Even back to the days of metaverse, people are like, oh, are we just working on something that's too far away? But if you look at things financially, I think the world is spending the money we are capable of. We are not betting everything like, hey, that would be a bet, right? People who make this financial decision are smart people. They're trying to say, okay, we have to spend some money on research, and this is the most promising research. So let's prioritize this. It's not like, oh, we're not going to eat, we're not going to live, we're spending all our money in this new field.
Yeah, for sure. I think basically the market kind of balances out the supply and the demand. So like then we're not actually spending too much, and I guess the market just corrects for itself. Although some people do think that currently we are developing AI at too fast of a rate while not addressing some of like the core issues in terms of alignment. So what are your views on that? Do you think we're developing AI too quickly? Or do you think that right now is a good pace?
So I think it's a good pace. I would even say it's a little slow to me. It's like, there are two parts. One is the core system, like how can we make the AI smarter? And also how do you create applications? So we can see there's a lot of ways to improve things based on AI. Let's say I've been using Duolingo to learn Spanish. I can see they are adding a new feature like you can use AI to help you to learn Spanish, which is kind of cool. Of course, you can do things in ChatGPT as well, but it's easier to use when someone already customized the environment for you. So these kind of application, I would say, let's have more of them so that we can at least gain the productivity boost from the current AI system. And in terms of like, if you think about using AI for some, controversial cases, let's say it's recommending some things that may be a biased topic in social media. These are the things like I think we definitely need to spend more energy into how to control AI so that it's used in a positive way. That part, I feel like we are probably a little behind because now suddenly everyone has such a powerful toy to play with, and we haven't developed enough protection systems. So that part needs, I wouldn't say a slowdown, it's more like an acceleration on the protection systems.
So basically, you think that instead of, I guess, slowing down development, we should be accelerating the alignment and the I guess, reducing these biases. So kind of like
Yes,
make it catch up kind of thing.
right. Like, I work on privacy for us. I see how privacy probably also started with like every country was like, okay, let's create a privacy law, but it's not very clear what to do. But gradually, people look at this country, look at the other country's law and say, okay, we learn from that. And gradually, it seems that privacy is becoming, in a way, it's like aligned. It's like, you want people to have control of their data. If I will say I want to delete my data, I should be able to delete it. And you have to be very clear, like you can only keep the data for X days. So these are things that are becoming a common sense, but we do not learn that from day one. So it takes a while for the research and for the government and for the non-tech field of people to figure out what's the right way to work with it.
Yeah, that's great. And also, just hypothetically, are you or are you comfortable with, I guess, AI making a bunch of decisions that directly affect your life, like such as self-driving cars where you don't have to drive anymore? Because I know some people might not be so comfortable with this, but I was just wondering, what do you think?
Yeah. So because you're asking me, a person working on AI, I'm already a biased answer. It's like I'm using FSD every day. I have a Tesla. I'm it took me a while to trust that system, especially for the full automated driving experience. But once it's like I try to hold my wheels very tight for the first day when I use that system. But over time, it's like, okay, it can do this. So I know in this scenario, it can handle it. And then in a more rare and edge case scenarios, like, okay, can it really do it? So I'm holding the wheels very tight when the first time I tried this scenario. And again, I'm like, oh, this system can do this safely. So gradually, I'm building my trust. It's not like I build the trust on the first day, but I would say there's a mental barrier. Like, are you willing to try this thing on day one? And that's something I see. But if I'm talking to my dad, I'll say that this thing drives better than you. So I would feel more comfortable sitting if you're behind the wheels and you let this system drive rather than you drive. So that's a moment I feel like, in that sense, for people who are uncomfortable, just show them, and you probably need some endorsement from some people you trust. Like, over time, it is a good thing to have. It actually, we are not talking about, Warren Buffett was talking about with Tesla Auto Drive, maybe the insurance company will suffer because there will be less accidents. So we are more concerned about that part rather than, oh, will people feel uncomfortable with FSD? It's like if it's like auto gear versus manual gear to me. If everyone's using auto gear, people will say, no, auto gear is not real driving. But it's so easy to use. So eventually or I say not everyone, but most people will embrace that.
I see. That's a interesting opinion. I think definitely a lot of people do share on self-driving. What about another scenario where, like, instead of a doctor that is making healthcare decisions, it's an AI that is making healthcare decisions for you? How would you feel in that scenario?
So to me, I'm a data person. So I want to look at the data on this. It's actually, back to the auto drive part. How can I trust this thing is more? Let's say I'm going to a robot taxi. How do I trust that? If I if I work in this area and see some verified results showing it's actually more safer, or like FSD, because I tried it myself, so I know it's safer uh, than some people. In the case of doctor, because I'm not working in this domain, so I can understand I will have less trust because I haven't seen the raw data. And I do not know if there's any statistical bias in creating of these data. But if if I'm a doctor or I work with some doctor myself, I know how the data is constructed. I would say, doctors also make mistakes. As long as the system makes less mistakes than the doctor, I'm fine with it. It's again, you can also control the system. Say we talk about false alarm rate and true positive rate, right? So we can make the threshold of the system. It's like again, look at auto drive. It's actually pretty cautious. People complain more like it's being overcautious because they try to be safe. So again, in the doctor case, we could train the system so that it's extra cautious. It will like it. We have to ensure it when we found, oh, here's a problem, don't miss things. So we favor recall versus precision. I don't want to use more technical terms here, but like we want to making sure we are not missing real problems rather than creating false alarms. So in that sense, I can first trust the system to be first a screening system. So let's say at first I still need a human to help me. But let's say one day the system has proved itself, the data shows that the human behind the system is now almost not needed, then I'm fine with it.
I'm also personally of the opinion that so we should like embrace new technologies, but also be kind of cautious while doing so. So like make sure you understand it, I guess. So you don't want to go too fast and run off a cliff, but you also don't want to like not go anywhere and not make any progress.
It's like, when we talk about you build a new plane, like only introduce 10% new stuff. Don't build a brand new thing if especially you're flying a human inside, right? So it's similar even in the software system. Every time you roll out new system, you have to develop a really good migration plan. How do you making sure existing system running gradually move to the new system? If everything looks bad, roll back. Don't just give it to everyone if you're not confident.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really important to look at the opportunities and challenges when we're faced with new technology. Although this might not always be possible for everyone who doesn't necessarily have a technological background or kind of understanding of how the system works. So how would you suggest somebody with less expertise make these decisions?
So, while it's technical, you do not need to understand how neural network works to see whether it works or not. All a human needs to do is to check the input and output, right? For the FSE things, like I check, does it make the right decision when it's turning on the red light, let's say. So you do not need to understand any of that just to tell whether, let's say, ChatGPT is giving you the right answer or wrong answer. So again, you evaluate the system as a human. The only difference, like now, because it's a kind of intelligent AI system, but that's not too much different versus you evaluate a human, right? You say, okay, this AI can drive, a human also can drive. You will have opinion like how you drive and how the other people drive, and similarly can have opinion on how the AI drives. And if everyone feels like okay, it's good, then it's good. If you feel like it's not good, then don't use it.
Yeah, so I think our time is drawing to a close. Thank you very much for this insightful interview. And do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
So I would say, thanks for organizing this. It's really fun to chat with you guys. So hope you guys can uh, help people understand AI, and also we can work together to figure out how to use AI for the benefit of the human society.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
See ya.